Tensura, the Abyss Demon by Wahab. Chapter 83. Rimuru's Paw. Luminous still looked shocked, her heterochromatic eyes flickering with a mixture of happiness and longing. Is it really time to unseal her? She asked, her voice softer than usual. Yes, I confirmed. I've already made the necessary preparations. Before she could respond, a knock echoed through the room. Diablo moved to open the door, revealing Chloe standing outside. She hesitated slightly before stepping in, her expression shy but determined. Mr. Rimuru, Chloe said gently, her gaze meeting mine. Luminous, however, was staring at her as if she were looking at a ghost. Is that really you, Chloe? She asked, her tone unreadable, somewhere between disbelief and overwhelming emotion. Chloe offered a small smile. It's really me, Luminous. I decided to cut the moment short. Now that Chloe is here, shall we go unseal her body? There was no longer any need for Chloe to remain as she was. The threat of an unknown future no longer concerned me. I wasn't about to be killed, nor would I allow anyone I cared about to be harmed. Besides, Chloe had been complaining about headaches whenever she recalled fragmented memories of her past. This was as much for her well-being as it was for the future. Luminous stood up, her resolve solidifying. All right, let's go. The sooner Chloe gets her body back, the better. She turned to Roy and Gunther, who had been silent observers until now. I will be away for a while. Stay here. They both bowed. As you wish, Luminous-sama. With that settled, Luminous raised a hand, activating a teleportation circle that enveloped just the three of us, herself, Chloe, and me. In a flash of magic, we vanished from Tempest and reappeared in Lubelius. Third person's paw. A hidden chamber lay buried beneath the nation of Lubelius, a place untouched by time, veiled in secrecy. Within this sacred space, three figures walked in, Luminous Valentine, Rimuru Tempest, and Chloe Aubert. Their eyes were set on the glass coffin at the chamber's center, wrapped tightly in gleaming chains. Inside, a breathtakingly beautiful woman with long, flowing black hair lay motionless. She was completely bare, her form serene as if in an eternal slumber. Chloe took the first step toward the coffin, her fingers trembling slightly as she reached out, but at the last moment, she hesitated. She turned to Rimuru, uncertainty clouding her gaze. How exactly are we going to do this? She asked. If my memory serves me right, then Chronoa, an ego born from negative emotions, still lingers within that body. If she awakens, Rimuru, ever composed, cut her off before she could spiral into worry. Don't worry. I'm here. Nothing will happen. His tone was calm yet absolute. I'll release the seal. If my speculations are correct, you'll regain your body and all of your powers. And since this vessel doesn't contain your soul, there won't be an issue of two Chloes existing simultaneously. With that said, Rimuru stepped forward. Stand back. Chloe hesitated but eventually moved to Luminous' side. As Rimuru reached for the coffin, Luminous' eyes widened in alarm. Wait, the ark is saturated with holy power. She cut herself off. Rimuru's hand had already touched the coffin. And yet, nothing happened. Luminous' breath hitched. What? That shouldn't be possible. The ark contained so much concentrated holy energy that even a true demon lord would be burned upon contact. Yet Rimuru was completely unaffected, his expression unreadable as he examined the structure with mild interest. Once again, Luminous was reminded of the absolute difference in power between herself and the ancient demon lords. Chloe, amused by her reaction, chuckled. Mr. Rimuru isn't like other people, she said. Common sense doesn't work on him. Luminous sighed, forcing herself to move past the shock. I guess so, she muttered, still trying to process what she had just witnessed. But for now, freeing Chloe took priority. Rimuru, on the other hand, was deep in thought as he analyzed the ark. So this is the holy ark. Rimuru mused. At that moment, Raphael's voice echoed within his mind. The ark isolates any souls within, allowing two versions of the same being to exist simultaneously. It is composed of pure spiritrons and infused with such immense holy power that even a true demon lord would suffer severe burns upon contact. Would you like to release the seal? Yes, no. Rimuru's lips curled slightly. This is quite the masterpiece. I didn't expect Luminous to be capable of creating something like this. Not bad. Rimuru thought, admiring the ark and praising the demon lord who made it. Without hesitation, Rimuru selected, yes. The moment he did, the ark shone brilliantly, its divine radiance filling the chamber. The powerful enchantments that had kept the coffin sealed for centuries shattered like glass. The chains wrapped around it unraveled, one by one, clattering to the ground. Now, only the coffin remained. Rimuru placed his hand on the lid, and pushed. The coffin creaked open. A violent, oppressive aura erupted from within, sending a shockwave rippling through the chamber. It was a presence unfit for a hero, something far more chaotic. Then, in an instant, the body inside the ark shot out, pulled by an unseen force. At the same time, Chloe, who had been standing beside Luminous, was also dragged forward. The two figures collided mid-air, their bodies merging into one. The pressure in the room intensified for a moment before settling. Though the chaotic energy had stabilized, the sheer power radiating from the now unified Chloe was undeniable. It was overwhelming. Yet just as Rimuru was about to relax. Notice. An unexpected instability has occurred. External interference is required to stabilize the fusion. Raphael's warning immediately put Rimuru on alert. Without hesitation, he stepped closer to Chloe, grasping her arms. Chloe, I'm going to help you. Let me in. Don't resist. Chloe looked up at him and she nodded. Permission of the individual named Chloe Aubert has been confirmed. Interference will begin. For some reason, Raphael sounds excited. Rimuru thought. Rimuru barely had time to dwell on it before everything happened at once. Unique skills, unlimited imprisonment, absolute severance, and time loop have been fused, combined with a large sacrifice of magicules, to evolve into the ultimate skill, Spacetime King Yog-Sothoth. And that wasn't all. Chronoa, once just an alternate personality within Chloe, underwent a transformation of her own. She had evolved into a Manas, an entity of pure information particles. With this change, she gained authority over Chloe's skills and could freely switch places with her at any moment. Chloe's aura, which had previously been raging like a storm, receded rapidly. She had gained complete control. Then, in an instant, her spirit armament materialized. A brilliant white cape dress wrapped over a long-sleeved black shirt, cinched by a sleek black corset. A flowing black waist cape trailed behind her, contrasting against her pristine white gloves and armored gauntlet on her left hand. White and blue boots completed the ensemble, along with a ruby necklace that gleamed like crystallized blood against her skin. Everything had occurred within mere seconds. Rimuru took a step back, blinking. Is it just me, or is Chloe even stronger than before? The thought barely settled in his mind before Chloe's eyes fluttered open. Without hesitation, she threw her arms around him, hugging him tightly. Then, before Rimuru could react, she kissed him, soft, warm, fleeting, right on the cheek. Rimuru is amazing as always. Chloe's voice was filled with admiration and something deeper. That's why I love you. Rimuru nearly choked. From Mr. Rimuru to straight up Rimuru. That's a pretty drastic change. He thought with an internal chuckle. Just then, hey, Chronoa, how could you cut in line before me like that? Chloe suddenly huffed, pouting. Rimuru blinked. Wait, that wasn't Chloe. Realization dawned on him, it was Chronoa who kissed him. So they really can switch freely now, huh? Well, that's gonna take some getting used to. Rimuru muttered. Clearing his throat, Rimuru refocused. How do you feel? Chloe stretched, rolling her shoulders. More than fine, she said with a dazzling smile. I can finally exist alongside Chronoa, and my powers are completely under control. Rimuru nodded, but his curiosity lingered. About your power, he wanted to confirm his suspicions. Chloe giggled, sensing his thoughts. You noticed it, didn't you? The hero's egg within me has hatched. That means, she twirled on her heels, striking a confident pose. I'm even stronger than before. Rimuru raised an eyebrow. Oh, that's surprising. Before he could ask more, Luminous stepped forward. She didn't hesitate. She simply pulled Chloe into a firm, warm hug. It's been a while, Chloe. Her voice, normally refined and composed, wavered just slightly with emotion. I'm glad you're back. Chloe returned the embrace. I'm glad to be back. For the first time in a long while, everything felt right. Third-person paw. Tempest had proudly shown off its advancement, beauty, and culture in the past few days. So far the event has been a resounding success and has done a remarkable job of leaving a good and lasting impression on the visitors. It was now day 2 of the founding festival, and the excitement in the air was palpable. The Grand Colosseum, a true marvel of architecture, stood proudly in all its glory, its towering walls enclosing a vast space capable of seating 50,000 spectators. Every seat was occupied, and the murmur of the gathered crowd created a low hum that reverberated throughout the structure. At the heart of the Colosseum lay the arena, a flat, expansive battlefield designed for combat. It was crafted from a special material, impervious to both physical and magical attacks, ensuring that no battle destroyed the platform. Surrounding the arena were 2 powerful barriers, one to maintain the battlefield's integrity and another to prevent stray attacks from harming the spectators. It was a masterpiece of design, blending elegance and function seamlessly. The sheer magnificence of the Colosseum left spectators in awe. Its beauty was unparalleled, and whispers of admiration filled the stands as nobles and commoners alike marveled at the grand spectacle. The VIP section, reserved for the most influential figures, was filled with prominent leaders and warriors: Gazel Dwargo, Elmesia El Rusarian, Erald Grimwald, Drum Blumend and his wife, Fuse, Yuman Mayulan, Benimaru, Hekuro, Shion, Mamiji, and many others. Each of them had come to witness the grand tournament, their expressions a mix of curiosity and anticipation. Above them, in a position that overshadowed even the noblest of figures, was the private seating area reserved solely for the supreme ruler, Demon Lord Rimuru Tempest. His section was elevated in such a way that he had a perfect view of the entire Colosseum, ensuring he would not miss a single moment of the action. Seated upon a luxurious throne, Rimuru exuded an aura of absolute authority and grace. His attire was befitting of his status, an ensemble woven from the finest materials, making him appear as though he was royalty above all royalty. His ethereal beauty was unmatched, his very presence divine, casting an almost hypnotic effect on those who dared to look upon him. A glimmer of anticipation shone in his eyes as he awaited the battles to come. Standing behind him like silent sentinels were Sue and Valkyrie, their presence both imposing and reassuring. Their watchful gazes swept over the arena and the stands, ensuring their lord's safety while also sharing in the excitement of the upcoming battles. The tournament was about to begin, and the tension in the air grew heavier with each passing second. As the event commenced, the excited murmurs of the audience settled into an eager silence. Stepping onto the grand stage at the edge of the arena was the announcer for the tournament, the lively and confident Dragonute, Soka. She radiated enthusiasm as she took to the stage. Not too far away stood Diablo, who would preside over the event as the referee. "Welcome, everyone, to the Tempest's founding festival tournament." Soka's voice rang out, amplified by magic so that every soul in the Colosseum could hear her clearly. "I am your announcer, Soka. Today, we witness the clash of the powerful warriors." A roar of cheers erupted from the crowd, excitement crackling through the air like lightning. Soka let the enthusiasm build for a moment before raising her hand, signaling for attention. "Now, without further ado, let's introduce our 8 brave competitors." The Colosseum rumbled with applause as each name was called, the competitors stepping forward one by one onto the arena floor. The Lightspeed Hero, Masayuki. The Mad Wolf, Jinrai. The Flowing Swordsman, Gai. Chief of the Bovoids, Bavix. Chief of the Equinoids, Equix. The Masked Man, Lion Mask. Captain of the Goblin Riders, Gobta. The High Orc, Geld. As the cheers from the crowd echoed through the Colosseum, an undercurrent of anticipation ran deeper than mere entertainment. For 4 of the competitors, Bavix, Equix, Geld, and Gobta, this tournament was more than just a spectacle. They were not merely here to put on a show for the people of Tempest, they were competing for something far greater, a chance to claim the final spot in a new elite unit formed by Demon Lord Rimuru himself. The 8 Heavenly Kings. This powerful division was created by Rimuru on a whim, primarily to ensure fairness in the tournament. Initially, some of his most powerful subordinates had intended to participate, but their overwhelming strength would have made the battles one-sided and, frankly, unfair to the other contestants. To prevent this, Rimuru had formed the 8 Heavenly Kings, immediately selecting 7 of his strongest and most trusted followers. Benimaru, Diablo, Testarossa, Ultima, Carrera. Valkyrie. Xian. Rimuru didn't have to worry about Sui joining since as the head of the intelligence bureau in Tempest, he couldn't show himself in public. With only one spot remaining, Rimuru had decided that instead of handpicking the final member, he would let the strongest prove themselves through battle. Bavix, Equix, Geld, and Gobta were all competing for this one opportunity. While the audience saw a thrilling tournament, for these four, it was a battle for their future. Each of them had their own reasons for wanting to stand among the elite, and today, they would push their limits to prove themselves worthy of the title Heavenly King. With all 8 competitors now standing in the arena, Sokka spread her arms wide and declared, "These are the warriors who will battle for glory. Who will emerge victorious? Who will claim the title of the strongest? Let the tournament begin." The Colosseum erupted in deafening cheers as the first match was about to be announced. The tournament was officially underway. The competitors all drew numbers at random, matchings for the tournament. The results: Bavix vs Equix, Masayuki vs Jinrai, Gai vs Gobta, Geld vs Lion Mask. With that concluded, the first match began. Bavix vs Equix. The two combatants stepped forward. They had both been named and empowered by the Demon Lord Rimuru. Both warriors are a solid A-rank monsters, their powers leagues beyond most. Bavix wields a great axe and a reinforced shield while Equix wields a spear and shield as well. Bavix wasted no time. With a earth-shaking roar, he swung his axe downward, aiming to split Equix in half. The attack was met with Equix's shield, stopping the devastating blow, but the impact sent a shockwave rippling across the arena. Without hesitation, Equix countered. His spear lunged forwards, a blur of motion. Bavix barely had time to deflect with his shield before Equix followed up with another rapid strike, then another. The battle raged on for 20 intense minutes, the Colosseum filled with the sounds of clashing metal, heavy footsteps as both warriors pushed their limits. Spectators were at the edge of their seats. Their strength was too evenly matched. Neither seemed to be overwhelming the other. But then, it all came to an abrupt end. Bavix hurled his axe with all his might. The weapon spun through the air like a death sentence, a projectile attack that could pulverize boulders. Equix reacted instantly, but he couldn't escape unscathed. His arm was blown off. Blood sprayed everywhere, but he had no time to feel pain. He had sacrificed his limb to block the attack. Gritting his teeth, he closed the distance. With his spear poised, he unleashed a flurry of attacks, a barrage too fast to dodge. Bavix suffered multiple deep stabs, but he wasn't done. With a beastly roar, Bavix lunged forward, his horns cackled with lightning, their size doubling in length. And then, crack! A devastating headbutt. The impact tore through Equix's right eye and arm. Lightning courses through his body, sending him into a violent spasms. His spear slipped through his grip. His consciousness faded. Equix collapsed. The crowd exploded with cheers as Sokka announced the result. Bavix had emerged victorious, and it was all thanks to his ultraspeed regeneration, which allowed him to outlast Equix in their brutal exchange as evidenced by the wound which had already began to mend. Masayuki vs Jinrai. Stepping onto the platform, Masayuki looked timid, but his friend looked confident instead. Both men were now in a standoff in the middle of the fighting ring. The moment Diablo, the referee, gave them the green light, something shocking happened. "I concede victory," Jinrai declared, dropping his weapon on the ground. This act made the crowd cheer even louder than they did before. Jinrai was cheering alongside them, while Masayuki just went along with everything, knowing it was all the doing of his unique skill. Masayuki was the winner. What the hell? Thought Demon Lord Rimuru as he, for the first time, witnessed the effect of the unique skill chosen one. He was finding it hard to understand the absurdity of the situation. He also noticed how some in the crowd were yelling the likes of, "The hero has done it again." Or, as expected of Hiro-sama. Gai vs Gobta. Ready. Begin. The battle started at Sokka's signal. With a short breath, Gai planted his feet down and thrust his sword. It was a sharp thrust. Gobta easily dodged the strike to the surprise of Gai. "Gah, that's too fast," Gobta complained. "Tch. How about this?" Gai unleashed a dancing slash, striking at Gobta multiple times. Gobta managed to dodge them all. It became a game of cat and mouse. Gai's relentless attacks cut through the air, but Gobta weaved between them, dodging with an ease that infuriated the swordsman. "You cowardly goblin! Fight me properly!" Gai barked, his swings becoming more aggressive, yet still failing to land a decisive blow. The spectators shared Gai's irritation. Some booed, while others sighed in disappointment. Even Rimuru and his companions frowned at Gobta's cowardly display. Gobta might not be as strong as the top executives, but he is still a capable person, and everyone knows that. After all, Gobta had undergone hellish training under Hakuro, Rimuru and Milam. So why was he holding back? Tired of watching the farce, Rimuru intervened. "Gobta, get your head in the fight. If you don't get serious and beat this guy, you'll be eating Xian's cooking for a month. If you win, I may give you something you've wanted for a while, but that's only if you win." Rimuru said through thought communication. Gobta paled instantly. The mere thought of enduring Xian's infamous cooking sent a shiver down his spine. Xian's cooking. Anything but that. Fine, I'll have to get serious. Ha ha ha, works every time. They're scared of her cooking. I know I should urge Xian to learn to cook properly, but without her poison. I mean cooking, I can't blackmail the likes of Benimaru and Gobta. Rimuru mused happily on his seat. Meanwhile, Gobta's movement abruptly changed. Instead of dodging wildly, he sidestepped with precision, stopping in his tracks and turning to face Gai head-on. His previously carefree expression vanished, replaced by an intense focus. The air around him grew heavier, his aura shifting in a way made Gai stunned for a second. Gai faltered for a brief moment, but quickly regained his composure. TCH. Trying to act tough now. Too late. He lunged forward, swinging his blade in a swift arc aimed at Gobta's neck. Then it happened. In a blink, Gobta vanished. No, not vanished, he moved. Flash step. A move Hakuro had drilled into Gobta and many others countless times. Before Gai could react, a powerful impact struck his gut. His eyes widened in shock as he felt the air forced from his lung. The world spun as he was sent flying across the arena, crashing into the far wall with a thunderous impact. Silence filled the arena. The arrogant swordsman, who had mocked and belittled Gobta the entire match, lay unconscious, completely defeated in a single blow. The audience erupted. Gobta blinked, staring at his own fist in surprise before grinding shyly as he scratched the back of his head. Rimuru from his seat smirked. I knew the kid had it in him. He could have just done that from the start. Benimaru, Hakuro and the other nodded in satisfaction, silently acknowledging his talented Gobta is. And with that, the match ended in an overwhelming victory for Gobta. Geld vs Lion Mask. Hee nice to see I can kick ass for the first time in a while. Lion Mask was certainly ready for the battle. Being able to cross arms with such a vaunted warrior is a very unexpected surprise. I will make the most of this chance to fight a seasoned opponent and tackle you with everything I have. Geld said, anticipation evident in his face. They both blurred for a second. Their fists clashed with such force that the very air trembled. Every punch, kick, and counter sent deep tremors through the arena, creating shockwaves that rippled around them. Geld, despite his massive frame and seemingly impenetrable defense, remained on the defensive, absorbing Lion Mask's relentless assault. His thick arms deflected powerful strikes, and his sturdy stance made it nearly impossible to knock him off balance. But Lion Mask was relentless, his blows were swift, precise, and devastating. Man, you're like a walking fortress, Lion Mask grinned, stepping back momentarily before lunging forward with a spinning kick. Geld caught the kick with a single hand, his grip firm like an iron vise, before shoving Lion Mask back a few feet. The crowd erupted in excitement as the two warriors refused to yield. The match wasn't about domination, it was about improvement, about honing their techniques against an equal opponent, at least for Geld. Geld knew his defensive prowess was unmatched, but this fight pushed his ability to react and counter with more efficiency. Meanwhile, Lion Mask, who specialized in high-speed, heavy-hitting combat, found himself adapting to Geld's ironclad defenses, looking for any possible opening. Lion Mask lunged again, throwing a barrage of rapid punches. Each strike was filled with explosive power, but Geld expertly blocked and parried, his experience showing. However, Lion Mask was no fool. He switched his rhythm mid-strike, feinting a right punch before twisting into a left elbow aimed at Geld's ribs. The impact landed with a solid thud, making Geld grunt as he staggered back slightly. That got through, Geld admitted, shaking his arms before cracking his knuckles. Guess I can't just sit back and defend all day. The moment Geld shifted from pure defense to offense, the intensity of the battle skyrocketed. His fists, though slower than Lion Mosk's, carried an incredible amount of weight behind them. One solid hit from Geld would undoubtedly send Lion Mask flying. Lion Mask ducked, weaved, and countered, but even he couldn't avoid everything. A heavy punch to his side made him cough, and a powerful kick to his thigh briefly numbed his leg. Still, he grinned through the pain. This is the kind of fight I love. Lion Mask roared, surging forward again. The battle showed no signs of stopping. It was a contest of endurance, of skill, of sheer willpower. The crowd cheered louder, fully captivated by the clash between two warriors who, despite their different approaches to combat, were proving themselves equals. And yet, neither had found a path to victory. 20 minutes had passed, yet the battlefield remained a storm of relentless blows, shockwaves rippling through the air with each clash. The ground beneath them bore deep scars, evidence of their fierce exchange. Lion Mask exhaled, a flicker of admiration gleaming in his sharp eyes. You've done well to hold out against me this long. My compliments to you. Geld, despite the fatigue settling into his massive frame, stood unwavering. His breathing was steady, his gaze firm. It's an honor to receive such praise from a lofty figure like you, but I still have a long way to go. This is not enough to impress Rimuru-sama. I want to use this opportunity to grow, and show my strength to Rimuru-sama. Lion Mask tilted his head slightly, his amusement evident. Ha ha ha, I like your spirit, and I understand how you feel. But you should know, Rimuru-san and Milim sit above this world, their strength so absolute that it can subdue anyone. Our power, though formidable, is nothing in their presence. Geld let out a chuckle, his stance unwavering. I understand, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't strive to acquire even greater strength. We may fall short, but as long as we don't give up. As he spoke, the air around him trembled. His aura, which had been a raging force moments ago, condensed, becoming sharper, refined. It no longer flared wildly, instead, it pulsed with a controlled intensity that sent a deep vibration through the battlefield. Lion Mosk's eyes narrowed slightly in approval. I see. But let me ask you something. Anything, Geld responded. Why aren't you using any skills? Geld's response was immediate. Isn't it evident? Because you aren't using one. A beat of silence. Then, ha 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 ha. Interesting. Lion Mosk's laughter rang through the air, filled with genuine intrigue. I cannot show my true strength, but I can show you some real moves. With that, a golden surge of energy erupted around his right hand. It wasn't a mere glow, it was a living, roaring force, coiling and crackling like a caged beast. Geld's stance shifted, his body instinctively bracing for the next attack. The ground trembled beneath them. Lion Mosk's golden-clad fist tore through the air, leaving behind a cascade of afterimages as he lunged forward. The sheer force of his movement sent a shockwave in all directions. But Geld did not waver. In that split second, his mind sharpened, recalling a technique he had once witnessed Rimuru-sama execute during their joint training. It was a maneuver so fast, so seamless, that even seasoned warriors struggled to react. Geld had learned that brute strength alone wasn't always the key to victory. Rimuru demonstrated a technique that focused on redirecting and concentrating power into a precise, high-speed impact, rather than relying solely on overwhelming force. Geld couldn't completely copy the technique, but he later adapted what he managed to glimpse into his own personal technique. Geld focuses his energy into his fist, but instead of releasing it immediately, he holds it back, creating a slight vacuum of force around his hand. Upon striking, instead of dispersing power instantly, the attack lingers for a fraction of a second before suddenly releasing in a delayed shockwave. This increases the damage output significantly. Geld's massive frame tensed, and an unnatural stillness fell over him. Then, he moved. A blur. His body twisted at the perfect angle, slipping past Lion Mosk's strike with an almost fluid grace. His counterattack ignited like a thunderclap, a compact, precise blow aimed at Lion Mosk's ribs. But it wasn't just brute force. At the last moment, Geld infused his fist with a refined energy, mimicking Rimuru's ability to compress power to an extreme degree. Boom! At first, it seemed like a normal punch, but then, a sudden secondary shockwave erupted from the point of impact. The force bypassed Lion Mosk's defenses, sending him staggering backward. Lion Mosk's form flickered, his instincts kicking in at the last moment to redirect the force. Even so, the shock sent him skidding back several meters, his boots grinding against the terrain. Lion Mask tried to recover, but Geld followed up with a rapid series of strikes, each one landing with a delayed shockwave that rattled his opponent's core. Bam! 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 The final strike landed square on Lion Mosk's chest, the delayed force detonating all at once, sending him skidding backward in a cloud of dust. When the dust settled, Lion Mask was on one knee, his breathing heavy. He placed a hand on his chest, looking down at his side, where Geld's attack had landed, feeling the residual shock still pulsing through him. A slow smirk tugged at the edges of his masked face. Impressive. Lion Mask rolled his shoulders. I felt that one, he admitted, exhaling. A technique that strikes twice in one motion, and with that level of precision. He smirked, shaking his head. Geld exhaled, his stance unshaken. I'm still far from Rimuru-sama's level, but if I can push even you back, then I know I'm on the right path. As long as I can keep improving, I'll reach even greater heights. The battle was over. The crowd cheered loudly as they waited for the announcement. Once the audience had calmed down, Soka began with her opening remarks. After much anticipation, she finally announced the upcoming fights. Bavix vs Masayuki. Gobta vs Geld. Chapter 84. Masayuki vs Bavix. The air in the arena was thick with tension as Masayuki Hanju stood across from his opponent, Bavix. The towering Minotaur warrior snorted, his muscular frame radiating pure brute strength. Masayuki, on the other hand, wiped his sweaty palms on his pants. He knew he was outclassed in raw power, but he had one thing on his side, his unique skill, Chosen One. Diablo, the referee, raised his hand as he announced, "Begin." Bavix wasted no time. He charged forward with incredible speed, his massive axe gleaming under the arena lights. Masayuki instinctively raised his sword, but he knew blocking wasn't an option, Bavix was far too strong. I'm so dead, he thought. But at that very moment, Chosen One activated. Just as Bavix swung his axe in a devastating horizontal arc, a stray gust of wind kicked up dust directly into his eyes. Gah! What the? Bavix snarled, his vision blurred. Masayuki, now panicking, swung his sword wildly in response. His blade completely missed Bavix, but instead, the motion caused him to slip backward. By sheer dumb luck, his unintentional stumble made him avoid the Minotaur's axe by mere inches. The crowd gasped. To them, it looked like an expert dodge. Masayuki, still clueless about how he survived, scrambled to his feet. Bavix, furious, rubbed his eyes and lunged again, this time going for a straight tackle. Oh crap! Masayuki yelped. He instinctively jumped back, but his foot caught on a loose strap of his own shoe. Instead of falling flat on his face, his awkward stumble miraculously turned into a backflip. The crowd roared in amazement. Bavix, unable to stop his own momentum, rushed past Masayuki and skidded dangerously close to the edge of the arena. He growled and turned around, but Masayuki, still flailing, accidentally swung his sword again, this time losing his grip entirely. The sword spun through the air like a boomerang and, by sheer luck, smacked Bavix square in the forehead. Ugh! Bavix groaned, dizzy from the impact. Disoriented, he took a step back, and that was the final mistake. The crowd collectively held their breath as Bavix's hoof landed just outside the boundary line. A deafening silence followed. Diablo, after confirming the position, raised his hand. Bavix has stepped out of bounds. The winner is Masayuki Hanju. A thunderous cheer erupted from the spectators. Masayuki blinked. Bavix, still dizzy, fell to his knees in disbelief. Masayuki scratched the back of his head, laughing nervously. Well, that worked out. Chosen One had done it again. Rimuru from where he sat couldn't help but marvel at the absurdity that is the unique skill Chosen One. Gobta versus Geld. The atmosphere in the arena was electric as Gobta stood across from Geld. Despite his usual goofy demeanor, he was well aware of the massive difference in power between them. Geld, the Orc King, was a warrior whose defensive prowess was second to none. Winning against him seemed impossible. But Gobta had a plan. The moment Diablo signaled the start of the match, Gobta wasted no time. "Alright, let's do this. Wolf summon," he declared, raising his hand. Gobta is the head of the Goblin Riders, and of course, that meant he could summon a Tempest Wolf and unify with it. This gave him magicule energy on the level of an A+ monster. This is the ability of his unique skill, Demon Wolf Summon. A swirling portal of dark mist opened behind him. But Gobta hadn't summoned a Star Wolf of any sort, A C or D rank threat. Instead out stepped Ranga. The entire arena went silent. Even Rimuru, seated in the VIP section, blinked in surprise. Wait, why is Ranga there? Gobta himself was dumbfounded. He had expected his usual Tempest Wolf familiar, not the Ranga. But before he could process what happened, Geld took a step forward, his aura flaring. Gobta gulped. No time to think, just go for it. Activating transformation, Gobta and Ranga were enveloped in a swirling plume of energy. Geld, recognizing the danger, charged forward to stop the fusion. But it was too late. The dark mist faded, revealing Gobta's new form, an imposing, bipedal wolf monster, standing taller than ever before. His body radiated a terrifying presence, his claws crackling with electricity. His once goofy expression was replaced with something almost feral. Rimuru leaned forward. No way, Gobta actually fused with Ranga. All of Rimuru's executives were just as shocked as him. Back in the arena, Gobta, no, the Gobta-Ranga hybrid, a werewolf, lowered his stance, his claws digging into the arena floor. His new body practically screamed speed. Geld, sensing the shift in power, readied himself. His body hardened, his defense reaching its peak. He had fought many fast opponents before, and he knew what to expect. Or so he thought. Because the moment Geld blinked, Gobta had already moved. A thunderous boom echoed as the hybrid form shot forward, faster than anything Geld had anticipated. Before the Orc King could react, Gobta crashed into him violently, the impact shaking the entire stadium. The sheer force sent Geld flying, straight out of the arena and into the reinforced wall. Crash! A massive crater formed where Geld landed, his body embedded in the stone. Despite his insane defense, the sheer speed and power of the attack had left him unable to react in time. Back in the ring, Gobta, or rather, the Gobta-Ranga hybrid, stumbled backward, shaking his head in a daze. He wobbled. He blinked. Then he grinned. Did we win? Diablo, after confirming Geld was out of bounds, raised his hand. Geld is unable to continue. The winner is Gobta. Silence. Then, Ruar. The crowd exploded into cheers, absolutely thrilled by the unexpected outcome. Gobta had done the impossible. Back in his seat, Rimuru chuckled. This kid sure has potential. Unfortunately, he can't control his increased strength, but nothing a little training can't fix. Gobta, still half dazed, grinned like an idiot. He had no idea how he pulled it off, but he wasn't about to question it. Victory was victory. Suddenly Gobta felt a shiver run down his spine for no apparent reason. Why do I feel like my life is in danger? Gobta shivered as he stuttered on his words. If there's one thing Gobta has going for him, it's his instincts. With that, the contestants for the finals taking place the following day has been decided. Rimuru's paw. As I made my way down to the 100th floor of the labyrinth, the echoes of the day's festivities still lingered in my mind. The founding festival had been a grand success so far. Xian and Shuna's surprise performance had captivated the crowd, and the sheer strength displayed by Geld and Gobta had left spectators in awe. It was only a matter of time before Tempest saw a surge of immigrants eager to become part of our nation. Trailing behind me were Xian and Diablo. Xian, as usual, exuded confidence, while Diablo walked with his ever-present, composed smile. It seemed he, too, was eager to see what awaited us below. When we finally arrived at the 100th floor, I immediately sensed the presence of Milam, Guy, Velzard, Veldora, Ramirez, and my demoness subordinates. Sure enough, they were all there. In one corner of the floor, I spotted Veldora, Velzard, and Ramirez seated around a round table. Ramirez, as animated as ever, waved her hands around while talking. Beretta and Trainee stood behind her attentively. Veldora and Velzard, on the other hand, were engaged in what seemed like a deep discussion about the best ways to utilize their powers and skills. That was worrying. Those two discussing strategies usually meant trouble for someone, though hopefully not for me. At the center of the floor, a barrier crackled with energy, sealing off an intense battle. Inside, Guy Crimson stood calmly, effortlessly fending off the relentless attacks of Testarossa, Ultima, Carrera, and Valkyrie. Despite their strength, they were visibly battered and bruised. Yet, even though Guy was toying with them, the girls refused to back down, pressing forward with every ounce of power they had. Their tenacity was admirable, though knowing Guy, this was probably nothing more than entertainment for him. Outside the barrier, Milam practically bounced with excitement, her fists clenched as she eagerly awaited her turn. "Ooh, it's almost my turn to play with them," she exclaimed, eyes gleaming with anticipation. Meanwhile, Misery silently observed the battle, her gaze sharp and calculating, as if analyzing every move and taking notes. Watching the scene unfold, I couldn't help but chuckle to myself. Even on a night like this, when the festivities had settled, the powerful beings of this world still sought out their own form of entertainment, by clashing with overwhelming might. The moment I stepped into view, every head in the room turned toward me. A smirk tugged at my lips as I took in the scene before me. "You guys seem to be having fun," I joked. Milam wasted no time, flying up to me with a grin. "Rimuru." The girls challenged Guy when they found out he was in Tempest. "That's why they're here," she explained excitedly. I shifted my gaze back to the battlefield. The barrier that contained the fight suddenly dispersed, the lingering energy crackling before fading into nothingness. Guy strode towards me, his expression unreadable. "They've gotten stronger," he remarked, nodding toward Testarossa, Ultima, Carrera, and Valkyrie. "And I'm sure that's all your fault." Behind him, my demoness subordinates were visibly frustrated, cursing under their breaths. "TCH, we're still no match for him," Ultima muttered. "We need to get stronger," Testarossa agreed, her crimson eyes burning with determination. Even Carrera and Valkyrie, who usually had a more reckless approach to battle, looked dissatisfied. Their wounds showed no signs of healing, proof of how thoroughly Guy had manhandled them. Even their natural regeneration had been suppressed. Guy let out a low chuckle. "They're formidable, sure, but nowhere near enough to challenge me." His crimson eyes locked onto mine as a smirk crept onto his lips. "Now, you on the other hand. More than ever, I want to test your strength." Before I could respond, Milam chimed in, bouncing on her heels. "Ooh, if Guy is fighting you, then I wanna fight too." A third voice joined in, smooth and powerful. "I too would like to spar with you, Rimuru," Velzard said. Her piercing gaze met mine, a small smile gracing her lips. "It's been a long time since our first encounter. That battle was quite the memory." My thoughts drifted back to that fight. I didn't lose, per se, but I had been overwhelmed. Back then, I lacked the sheer dominance I wielded now. Things had changed. I met Velzard's gaze and smirked. "Just know, if we fight now, it will be one-sided, and in my favor, I might add," I said confidently. Velzard's eyes darkened slightly, her lips curling into a sinister chuckle. "Oh, is that so?" Milam's eyes widened in excitement. "Whoa, you must have gotten really strong if you're so confident in taking on Aunt Velzard." Guy hummed in agreement. "Exactly. Even I wouldn't say I could beat her outright. Now I'm really curious about your strength." A familiar chuckle echoed behind me. "Kufufufu," Diablo snickered. "Looking to see the depths of Rimuru-sama's power, Guy. You'd be surprised to know that you've long been left in the dust. Rimuru-sama was already the strongest of our brethren in the underworld. That fact hasn't changed." Guy's smirk widened. "Oh, let's test that out." A fraction of his aura leaked out, pressing toward me like a crushing tidal wave. The air grew dense, and the floor beneath us cracked violently from the sheer pressure. I merely smiled, unfazed by his antics. What a battle maniac, I thought. Before things could escalate, Ramirez shot between us, waving her arms frantically. "Stop that right now. You two are in my labyrinth. If you wanna fight, go outside." Guy clicked his tongue but withdrew his aura immediately. Then, a loud, boisterous voice echoed through the floor. "The only one fighting Rimuru is me," Veldora declared with a smug grin. "He promised." Milam gasped in betrayal. "No fair. You promised Uncle Veldora but not me," she whined, stomping her foot. I sighed. Seeing the conversation heading nowhere, I decided to shift the topic. So, Guy, how's the festival? Are you enjoying yourself? I asked, hoping to steer things toward a lighter mood. Guy gave a satisfied nod. It's great. The food is excellent, but what I enjoyed the most was the hot spring. A rare look of relaxation crossed his face as he recalled it. It's been a while since I felt that comfortable. I might visit Tempest more often just for that. I raised an eyebrow at his words, but then he added, you should reserve a place for me every time I come. I deadpanned at his bossy tone. If you want a private place for yourself, you'll have to purchase one. It can be customized however you like, but don't tell me a demon lord of your caliber doesn't have the means to buy a house, I said teasingly. Guy blinked, looking genuinely taken aback. Seriously? You're demanding money from me? Of course. That's how the world works, I replied smugly. Guy sighed in exasperation. Fine. Misery will handle that. He glanced at Misery, who merely nodded in understanding. Then, after a brief pause, he asked, can a hot spring be built there? If you want, I shrugged. As our conversation continued, Milam had already taken to sparring with the demonesses, eager to have her fun. Meanwhile, Velzard, Veldora, and Ramirez carried on with their discussion, completely absorbed in whatever scheme they were planning. Just as our conversation was winding down, Guy suddenly called out, by the way, what are you going to do about the heroes present in Tempest? I wasn't surprised he noticed Masayuki and Chloe. Masayuki was constantly radiating a hero's aura, it was practically impossible to miss. Chloe, on the other hand, was still learning to control her increased strength, so a faint aura clung to her as well. Even if they weren't trying to stand out, their very existence made them noticeable to someone like Guy. You don't have to worry about them. They're not a threat, I reassured him. Then, after a brief pause, I continued, but about these heroes, one of them seems to be a reincarnation of Rudra. Guy's sharp gaze locked onto me, intrigued. I took the opportunity to relay everything I knew about Masayuki. An eyebrow rose in surprise. Oh, that's unexpected, he muttered. Do you have any idea what might have caused this? I asked. Guy nodded, arms crossed. Being in possession of the ultimate skill, Justice King Michael put a tremendous strain on Rudra. To deal with this, he underwent periodic reincarnation. I hummed in thought. I see. Then his reincarnation art must have been flawed. Each cycle likely chipped away at his soul, and those fragments must have eventually reincarnated as Masayuki. Seems like it, Guy agreed. Masayuki doesn't possess Rudra's memories, yet. I'll keep an eye on him for the time being, I assured him. I want to see this, Masayuki for myself, Guy said, his curiosity clearly piqued. You can do so at tomorrow's finals, I informed him. With that, I turned toward Veldora and Ramirez. You guys ready for tomorrow? Tomorrow was an important day, the dungeon would officially open to the public. I didn't want any unnecessary problems. Ramirez immediately puffed up her chest and gave me a salute. You can count on us. Kuhahaha. Tomorrow is the day I shall show the world my majesty. Veldora roared dramatically. I sighed, already questioning whether he even realized that no one was going to reach his floor tomorrow. The labyrinth had 100 floors, after all. It would take days, if not weeks, for challengers to make it all the way down, and that's me being optimistic. Some floors would undoubtedly slow them down, making it even more of an endurance test. Well, he'll figure it out eventually, I guess. Third person POV. The third day of the founding festival had finally arrived, marking the grand finale of the tournament. The Colosseum was packed to the brim, with spectators eagerly awaiting the final match. The energy in the air was electric, a mix of excitement and curiosity as the two remaining fighters prepared to clash, Gobta vs. Masayuki. People were enthusiastically arguing and betting with each other over who would win. All right, ladies and gentlemen. The final match of the tournament is here at last. Which of our two competitors will seize the championship for himself today? Will it be the Lightspeed Masayuki or Gobta, the fighter rising up and making a splash as he vies for a spot in illustrious Big 8? Soka's commentating was as energetic as ever. The audience were all riled up because of it. In the VIP section, the usual distinguished guests were present, but today, 3 individuals stood out among them. Rimuru's executives were already aware of their presence, but the rest of the audience remained oblivious, except for one person. Elmesia el Rusarian, the empress of the sorceress dynasty of Thalian, had turned pale. Her entire body trembled as she stared at two of the newcomers with distinct hair colors, one with fiery red, the other green. She knew exactly who two of them were. The demon lord Guy Crimson, and the green primordial, Misery. She couldn't figure out the identity of the third individual, but since she sat next to Guy so nonchalantly, it didn't take a genius to figure out that she is someone on the level of Guy Crimson. Neither of them spared a glance at the others in the VIP section. They didn't need to. To them, everyone else was beneath notice. Standing silently behind Guy and Velzard was Misery, Guy's ever-loyal maid, who radiated an intimidating yet composed presence. Sitting next to Guy was none other than Milam Nava, eagerly waiting to see how the final battle would unfold. As anticipation reached its peak, Soka, the announcer, provided a few last commentaries, hyping up the match. Then, the referee, Diablo, gave the final signal. The match had begun. From the very start, Gobta wasted no time. There was no playing around, he immediately summoned Ranga. A hushed murmur spread through the crowd as the massive Tempest Star Wolf emerged, towering over the arena. Then, without hesitation, Gobta fused with Ranga, his body radiating a surge of newfound power. This action didn't go unnoticed. Milam, who had been casually watching, suddenly perked up, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "Ooh, sweet. What is that? So cool," she exclaimed, leaning forward in anticipation. Even Guy and Velzard spared a brief glance at the battlefield, intrigued by what was to come. Masayuki stood in the center of the Colosseum, sweat forming on his brow. His hands clenched at his sides as he struggled to keep his breathing steady. He was nervous, very nervous. It wasn't like he wanted to be here. He knew his own strength, or rather, his lack of it. Compared to the monsters who had fought in the earlier stages of the tournament, he was completely outclassed. There was no way he could defeat Gobta in a fair fight. Right now, his only hope was to rely on his unique skill and pray that he didn't get hurt too badly. But then, Gobta vanished. No, not vanished. Masayuki's eyes barely registered the moment Gobta moved. The fused werewolf shot forward like a bolt of lightning, disappearing from his starting position in an instant. And then, boom! A sudden, thunderous crash echoed through the arena. Dust and debris kicked up near the VIP boxes, startling several guests. Masayuki, completely untouched, blinked in confusion. Soka, who had been hyping up the fight, hesitated before speaking through the mic. What just happened? The dust settled. Everyone's eyes turned toward the far side of the Colosseum, where a Gobta-shaped crater was embedded into the wall beneath the VIP section. Silence. Then, whoa, Gobta isn't getting back up, is he okay? Soka finally called out. Gobta had run straight past Masayuki, completely missing his opponent, before slamming himself into the wall at full speed. And he was out cold. The out-of-bounds line was far behind him. He had knocked himself unconscious before Masayuki had even moved. It was over. The match had ended in less than 3 seconds. Up in the section meant for the king, Rimuru sat motionless, doing his best to keep his expression neutral. This idiot, he cursed. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't stop the second-hand embarrassment from creeping in. Even after explicitly telling Gobta to get used to his power as quickly as possible, the fool had lost control at the worst possible time. No, it was better to say, Gobta hadn't actually gotten used to the power in the first place. Rimuru's executives all had similar expressions. Benimaru pinched the bridge of his nose. That fool, he muttered. Hikiro's head twitched as veins throbbed on his forehead, his patience reaching its limit. I guess I expected too much from him. I'll have to increase the difficulty of his training, he muttered. Even Milam, who had been full of excitement, was now visibly pissed. Her fists clenched, and she gritted her teeth. What the hell was that? I was actually looking forward to this fight. Milam abruptly stood up from her seat, her earlier frustration vanishing as excitement took over. She turned toward Rimuru with a wide grin, practically bouncing in place. Oh, Rimuru, she called out eagerly. Can I train those two? They have so much potential, and I wanna see it fully realized. Her eyes sparkled with anticipation, already imagining the intense training she would put them through. Rimuru, still recovering from the sheer absurdity of the match, gave her a nod. Go ahead. Now that Gobta has Ranga as his companion of sorts, he needs to seriously amp up his training if he wants to fully utilize Ranga's immense power. Milam let out a victorious laugh. Alright, this is gonna be so much fun. Meanwhile, down in the Colosseum, Masayuki was still trying to process what had just happened, while Gobta remained embedded in the wall, unconscious. Thus, Masayuki, who had done absolutely nothing, was declared the tournament champion. The crowd erupted in mixed cheers and confusion. What an anticlimactic final. Dot, 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 dot. With everything settled, it was finally time to award the tournament's victor. Standing alone at the center of the stage, Masayuki did his best to maintain a composed expression, though inwardly, he still had no idea how things had escalated to this point. Before long, Diablo stepped onto the stage, his elegant stride exuding an air of absolute authority. In one hand, he held Masayuki's prizes, and in the other, a microphone. Bringing the mic close, his smooth, charismatic voice filled the Colosseum. On behalf of my lord, Demon Lord Rimuru-sama, I extend my heartfelt congratulations to Masayuki, who has proven his strength and emerged victorious in this grand tournament, Diablo declared, his words laced with absolute reverence for Rimuru. The crowd erupted into cheers once again as Masayuki was handed his trophy and a bag of 100 gold coins. Accepting his prize, Masayuki bowed slightly, prompting an even greater round of applause. Masayuki, Masayuki, Masayuki. The crowd changed loudly. Diablo, however, wasn't finished. After awarding Masayuki, he turned his attention toward the sidelines, where Gobta and Ranga had been sitting, still recovering from their earlier humiliation. With a smirk, he walked up to them. Gobta, Ranga, he called out smoothly. Gobta straightened up, still rubbing his head from the impact earlier. Yeah. Diablo's golden eyes gleamed. Though your performance was less than satisfactory, you both have proven yourselves capable in battle. As such, I hereby declare that from this day forth, you shall be recognized as part of the 8 heavenly kings under Rimuru-sama. Gobta's jaw dropped. Wait, really? Diablo gave a slow nod. Yes. However, his smirk widened into something more ominous. You are nowhere near the level of strength Rimuru-sama expects from you. Therefore, effective immediately, you will undergo intense training under Milam-sama. Silence. Then, a visible shudder ran down both Gobta and Ranga's bodies. The mere mention of Milam as their trainer sent waves of terror through them. Ranga, the intelligent beast that he was, knew an opportunity when he saw one. He immediately tried to escape, his body dissolving into his shadow to retreat. Unfortunately, a powerful grip latched onto his form before he could disappear. Slowly, Ranga turned his head. There, smiling eerily, was Milam Nava. With her other hand, she grabbed Gobta by the back of his collar as well. You're not going anywhere, she said, her voice filled with pure enthusiasm. Gobta began to flail in panic. Wait, Milam-sama, let's talk about this. Milam grinned. Nope, I'm gonna mold you into powerful warriors. Lucky for you, we have the labyrinth at our disposal, so you don't even have to worry about dying. Before Gobta or Ranga could protest further, Milam whisked them away into the labyrinth. Meanwhile, Rimuru simply sighed. Well, they'll come out stronger than ever if they endure. Dot, 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 dot. With the fighting tournament over, having lunch was the next thing on the agenda. After the lunch break, everyone returned to their seats, eagerly anticipating the final event of Day 3 of the Founding Festival. This time, Ramirez sat atop Rimuru's head, practically bouncing with excitement. It was her dungeon, after all, Tempest's greatest challenge, and today was its official unveiling. Down at the event space, Soka and Myormal, who had taken over as the guide and announcer replacing Diablo for this segment stood. Soka, full of energy, raised her microphone. All right, the time has come. The final event of Day 3 of the Founders Festival is about to begin. The crowd erupted into cheers, their anticipation reaching its peak. Myormal took over smoothly, his voice carrying a tone of grandeur. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We are about to unveil one of Tempest's greatest achievements, our impregnable dungeon. This is the ultimate challenge for adventurers, presented by our very own leader, Demon Lord Rimuru. Will anybody out there be able to conquer it? A wave of excitement rippled through the audience. This was the first ever public showcase of the dungeon. A select number of adventurers and challengers would enter, and their progress would be displayed on a massive screen for everyone to witness. The tension was palpable. Then, Soka raised her hand dramatically. And so, she declared, her voice ringing through the Colosseum, "We'd now like to open the labyrinth up to adventurers. Are there any members of the audience courageous enough to challenge the dungeon?" With that as the cue, Romulus grinned and summoned a temporary doorway to the dungeon in the center of the stage. A massive door materialized, drawing the audience's collective awe. Gasps of amazement filled the air. The event had a strict time limit of 3 hours. In total, 4 groups had stepped forward to take on the challenge. Masayuki's party, the so-called hero and his companions consisting of Jinrai, Jiwoo and Bernie. Uren's adventurer trio. Bassone's group, a lesser-known yet confident band of adventurers. Gai, the flowing swordsman. With anticipation thick in the air, the 4 groups entered the dungeon simultaneously. Outside, Soka remained at the event space, taking on the role of the main commentator, while inside guidance was handled by the Dryads, Alpha, Gamma, Beta, and Delta. These 4 Dryads accompanied each party while also acting as cameramen, ensuring that every moment of the challenge was captured and displayed on the massive screen for the audience to see. As the challengers stepped into the dungeon, Soka held up a shining bracelet for the audience to see. "Before we begin, let me introduce an important piece of equipment, the Resurrection Bracelet." She lifted it higher, allowing the camera to zoom in on the intricate magical engravings on the band. This bracelet is highly recommended for anyone challenging the dungeon. It is a miraculous item that actually revives its wearer upon death. A wave of disbelief surged through the crowd. "Impossible!" Many people shouted, their skepticism loud and clear. The idea of true resurrection was unheard of. Soka, expecting such a reaction, quickly raised a hand to calm them down. "I understand your doubts, but let me clarify, this bracelet's effect only works inside the labyrinth. If an adventurer dies inside, they will be resurrected in a designated safe zone. However, once they leave the labyrinth, the bracelet loses its effect entirely." The audience murmured among themselves, their shock and curiosity blending together. If this was real, then Tempest's dungeon wasn't just a challenge, it was a revolutionary adventuring ground. To silence the doubts of the audience, Soka decided to demonstrate the bracelet's effectiveness. "Now then, let's show you that this is no trick," she declared. She walked into the labyrinth to catch up with those inside. She then turned toward Myormal. Myormal, standing beside her, had a resolute look on his face. He wasn't scared. He already knew how effective the bracelet was. Without wasting time, Soka swung her sword. A clean, precise cut. The moment her blade cleaved through him, Myormal's body dissolved into countless shimmering light particles. The crowd gasped in horror. Then, in the very next moment, a brilliant glow erupted from the center of the stage. Myormal reformed, whole and completely unharmed, right by the dungeon entrance. The audience fell silent for a heartbeat, then erupted into a deafening roar of amazement. "It's real. The bracelet actually works. Unbelievable." A mix of shock, awe, and excitement spread like wildfire through the crowd. Myormal, now fully revived, staggered slightly before regaining his composure. "That was terrifying," he muttered. Soka walked back to the stage, next to Myormal. "There you have it, folks. And please remember, the resurrection bracelet only works in the labyrinth." With all doubts erased, the time had finally come. With all preparations complete, the challenge officially began. Each of the 4 groups ventured into the labyrinth, their determination shining in their eyes. Dot, 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 dot. It was a thrilling experience for both the audience and the challengers. As time went on, the appeal of the labyrinth became obvious. The high-quality gears and treasures one could obtain was mouthwatering, and it was sure to attract more challengers. As the 3-hour time limit came to an end, the results of the first-ever dungeon challenge were revealed. Masayuki's party reached floor 10 with astonishing speed. Gai, the flowing swordsman, also reached floor 10. Uren's adventurer trio made it to floor 5, the intended final floor for the showcase. Bassone's group did well but did not progress as far as the others. However, Masayuki's group and Gai had gone overboard, pushing beyond what was planned. Despite this, the event was a massive success. The dungeon had been fully advertised, showing its excitement, rewards, and safety measures while also proving its difficulty and potential. With this perfect showcase, the Labyrinth of Tempest was sure to attract waves of adventurers eager to test themselves and earn fame and wealth like never before. With the dungeon showcase successfully concluded, so too came the end of the founding festival. To commemorate this grand occasion, a massive banquet was held, one unlike any before. No expenses were spared. The best chefs in Tempest worked tirelessly to prepare a feast worthy of demon lords, heroes, and rulers alike. Tables were lined with an extravagant spread, from succulent roasted meats to exquisitely crafted desserts, each dish a masterpiece designed to leave a lasting impression on everyone present. The atmosphere was lively. Laughter, chatter, and the clinking of glasses filled the air as leaders, adventurers, and citizens alike celebrated the success of the festival and the bright future of Tempest. Tonight wasn't just a celebration. It was a statement. Tempest had firmly cemented its place as a rising superpower, and this festival was just the beginning.